Thanks everyone so much for joining. My name is Katie and I'm here with my colleague Abby. We're both on the product marketing team. So we spend a lot of time talking to our customers, our designers to understand their business and how you're using Houzz Pro and understand, what else we can do to help you to make Houzz Pro just work better for you as well. And Abby is intimately familiar with selection, so she will be the one going through all of the demos here. A few housekeeping tips. Feel free to log into your Houzz Pro account so you can follow along as we're going through. If you have any questions throughout, you can put those either into the Q&A tab or the chat, and then we'll answer them either live or just within the chat. And then we will be sending out a recording of this after the session today, so don't feel like you need to take notes on everything. With that, Abby, I'll hand it over to you.
Amazing. Thank you, Katie. I'll go ahead and share my screen. So we're going to start things off at a very foundational level, talking about selections today. So where I want to start the conversation today about selections is at that foundational level, like I mentioned, and that is going to be the category system. So you may have seen categories when you've been clipping products in the past or adding products manually from inside of a project, etc., and seeing that category field, right? Now, what does this category field do for you? This is the backbone of your library, right? This is the organization system that sets the tone for your entire selections process. So naming these categories and naming them in a really clean, usable way is going to be key for you to be able to use the selections tracker later on and use different features to the fullest potential, right? So you'll notice that I have some different category groupings here, like mirrors or all of the nightstands that I'm loading in, floor lamps, rugs, etc. And if your focus is more on construction finishes, you can also do things like plumbing, lighting, cabinetry, right? You can kind of batch those into trade, or you can batch those into the actual product category of the furniture that you're selecting. Now, this can be accessed from the company and categories page. And I just want to start this off here because, like I mentioned, this is going to set up the entire foundation of how you use these selections in a really smart way later on. If you have categories existing, that's fantastic. We love that. But you can always come back to this page if you need to tweak things, right? If maybe you need to change some categories, adjust what the categories, how they're spelled, right? I notice myself even, I want this to be cabinetry, or I want something to be plural. It's super easy to inline edit and adjust what those categories are. So that way they set you up for success later on. And I'll show you what I mean as we go throughout this presentation. But just as that starting point foundation, getting these categories right is everything. Additionally, from this company tab, you can also adjust your actual items. So maybe if you forget to assign a category to an item, you can actually just use this drop down here to change the category, adjust it for the overall product library. And you can also do that on the individual project as well, which I'll show you shortly on. So this is really going to help you kind of align everything to how you're thinking about things, right? Especially in the construction world. Like if you need to create finished schedules, for example, and you need to see a finished schedule of all the lighting for the project, you're gonna want to have set up all those light fixtures under lighting. So I need to both have my category for lighting here, and then I also need to log my actual light fixtures under the category lighting, if that makes sense. Now, that's just a piece of the puzzle, but it is very, very important to building out the entire selections process. So I wanted to make sure that we spent time focusing on that for sure. Any questions on categories?
Nope, no questions so far.
Perfect. Next, we're going to move into templates. So again, this is going to be another foundational item for you in building a scalable selections process for your firm. So under company, again, right above categories is templates. Now, this is where you're going to access all of the templates for your entire business. But today we're focusing on selection boards. Now, you may or may not have seen selection board templates before. This is relatively a new feature for us. But what you can do is come in here and build templates for what you need your selections to look like. So whether you're creating a template for all the items that you need to select for a specific space, for a specific scope of work, for a specific thing. So maybe it's a template for the sofa. You need the trim, you need the cushion, you need the fabric, etc. You can kind of create these templates to be completely custom to your firm. It's super easy. You can just use the create new template button up at the right-hand corner. And then alternatively, you can turn your existing boards into templates as well. So there's a couple of options there. Now I'll show you an example of one that I have created here. And so this is my standard bathroom template. Now, the next piece of this templating process, because every project is custom, as we all know, you're not doing a lot of the same repeat products, right? And so we introduced a new feature called placeholders. Some of you may have played with this already, but what you see here on my bathroom selection board template is placeholders. So I have a placeholder here for a double sink bathroom vanity. I have a placeholder for shower trim, for the toilet, for the different tile selections that I need, for the lighting, etc. And so that way I'm really building up a list of what items I need to select for this project. Now, placeholders are available both in the templates and then also in the selection boards. And so there's really kind of two ways that you can approach this concept of placeholders and templates. You can build these repeatable templates that you use over and over, or alternatively, you can start a new project. And when you're reviewing the floor plan, you can just go down and reuse these placeholders. You're going through the floor plan and figuring out what things do I need to select, right? I need to select these 10 things. I need a sofa. I need an 8x10 rug. I need 2 chairs, that sort of thing. And so you're able to build a list completely custom to the project. But you can kind of start that process by using a template and kind of speed things up. So diving a little bit more into what placeholders are, these are going to be temporary items that you can swap for actual products later. So like I mentioned, building that list of the things that you need to select or that your team member needs to select is going to be really, really valuable to use this placeholders functionality. And something super important about this is that it will keep the budget and it will also keep the quantity. So for example, if on this specific placeholder, I said I wanted to spend $2,500 on this vanity, once I replace this placeholder with an actual item, it's going to replace and keep the quantity. And then if the price is over budget, it's going to warn me. So really, really helpful and valuable there. But I'll show you what that looks like on an actual selection board next. But this is really going to help you kind of get nitty gritty and get on track with the actual products that you're using on your project. Make sure you're providing selections for everything that you need to provide a selection for and have that really fine line granularity into the actual budgets. Now, moving into an actual selection board, there are a couple of ways that you can organize your selection boards. You can organize them by room, or you can organize them by trade. Now, the one that we're looking at right now is organized by room. I'll show you how to create one by trade later. But starting with room is the majority of what designers are doing today is organizing things by room, because we all think of what do I need to, what's happening in this kitchen, right? What does this look like? And the other side of that is for the client, that's what's most digestible for them. They need to see things by room and visualize the full concept. So within the selection boards, you can bring in a number of things to kind of paint the visual story of the project. You can bring in the mood boards that you've already created inside of Houzz Pro. You can also bring in the floor plans if you're using Houzz Pro's 3D floor planner. You can even bring in attachments, so specific files that you want to associate. Like I've seen people bring in cabinet drawings, right? You can bring everything in so that way you can collect approvals in one place instead of in 10 different places, which is amazing. Now, coming down through this selection board page, there's a few things to note, right? Up at the top left, you're going to have your approval status. So that approval status is going to help you filter and sort as decisions are made. If you need to see just the things that your client hasn't approved, you can change it to pending. If you need to see only the things that they've approved, you can change that filter as well. And then alternatively, anything that's declined, you can view a list of that as well. Up at the top right, there's a lot of different actions up here. The budget is going to be one of the key things. So you can track the overall budget for this entire room. So you can see exactly what's being spent across the individual room. And it's going to give you that notification when you go over budget or when you're under budget. And so you can keep an eye on what's happening with the budget as you're making decisions, as the client is making decisions. Up at the top, we have a few different actions. So this information icon is where you're going to want to go if you need to change the name of the board, or if you need to change who's assigned to work on the board. Maybe you have a larger team and you want multiple people working on different boards. You can change who's working on those boards. Convert, we'll get into a little later. There's a few other actions here as well. The one that I want to point out right now is saving as a template. So if you do have a really great board that you do want to repeat, right, you can save that as a template and then reuse that in the future. And then preview and share, we'll dive into when we talk a little bit more about the actual client experience. So scrolling down the page, I have a number of different things here. So I have a mixture of both furniture and finishes. I have counter stools, I have decorative lighting, I have cabinetry, etc. And what you're seeing these groupings of are called sections. So anytime you want to create a section to group things within a smaller batch, you can just hover and this create new section button will appear and you can create a new section. So maybe you need a new section for art. You can create a new section for art. You can assign it a custom color. If you know your brand colors, you can get that specific if you want to. And then you're going to be able to drag and add items just to this specific section. Now, let's say, for example, we want to create a placeholder for art. We know that we need to purchase art. We don't know what it's going to be yet, but I want to hold a space on this selection board for art. Now, this is going to be how you create placeholders. So up at the top right-hand corner, hopefully most of you are familiar with this right-hand navigation, but up at the top, the My Items is going to be your best friend. All of the items are going to live in here, both the items you've used in the past, the items that you've used in other features inside Houzz Pro for this project. So maybe this was on the mood board, but it's not yet on a selection board. Those are all going to live right here. But the key thing here is going to be the placeholders library. So any of the existing placeholders that you have built are going to be available for you to reuse. So hopefully you can kind of start to see that you can really build a custom repeatable process for your business. So I don't think that I have one for art, which is a good thing. So we can actually create that together today. And then again, you'll be able to reuse it in the future. So up at the top right of this little pop-up, I'm going to click placeholder. I am going to type in that I need a 3-foot by 6-foot piece of art. I'm going to give that a cost type as product. I'm going to go ahead and hit generate image with automate, and that's what's going to create that little thumbnail image. Now, obviously, branding matters a lot, so you can also upload your own images. If you want to create images that are custom to your firm, you can upload those as a placeholder image as well. I'm going to save this to my category art while that is still loading. If I know who I want to buy it from, I can go ahead and indicate that here. And then you can also indicate the anticipated cost, right? If I'm going to spend $3,500 on this piece for my kitchen, I can go ahead and call that out now, call out that I'm going to mark it up 15%, and then the total selling price is reflected here for me. Now, when I hit create, it's going to go ahead and add that into my selection board for me. And now I want to pull this into my art section. So using these 3 dots, I'm going to go to add to section and then art. And now that has been moved into my actual art section of the board. So later on, when I find the art that I want to source, I can just drag and replace, which is beautiful. So let's take a look at how that actually works. Let me see if I have a piece of art in here that we can replace. I do. So let's say this amazing 4-hands piece of art is the one that we want to move forward with. Now we want to replace this placeholder with the actual product. Now you and I know, we can see that this product is only $791, but we budgeted way more than that. So what's going to happen? So what we're going to do is drag and hover, and you'll see right here, it says drop to replace, and it's going to replace that placeholder with the actual item. Now you can see it's going to tell you it's going to rewrite things. It's going to let you know that this action can't be undone, and that's fine. We're going to hit replace, and then it's going to replace that item for us. Alternatively, if the item had been beyond the budget, it would pop up and notify us, hey, this is actually $3,000 more than what you plan to spend. It will let you know that. So it's got some safeguards built in to help you through that process. Now, hopefully you can kind of see how easy it is to go from a list of what I want to select for this project and then replace it with the actual items. So now moving down the line, thinking more about the actual selections and the actual sections that we have built up here. Now, I mentioned the budget up at the top here that is covering the overall room budget. You can also manage budgets on a section level. Now, the fastest way to do that is just clicking here and turning on show budget. It's going to show you exactly what is being spent so far for this specific section. So that's going to help you break things down in a more granular level, right? Another way that I see people use these sections is to do options. So they could have a package A, package B. So you can have different options if you want to present options that way. And so that allows you to kind of group things however you want, and then also track the budget for those specific sections however you want. Okay, so moving along with the selections here, let's talk a little bit about how this board is organized. So I have this board organized in a way that's really client friendly for presentation, right? They have everything that they need to see and think about for this project in one place. So when I click preview and share up at the top right-hand corner, this is a preview of what my client is going to experience when I send this to them. Now, I paused there because a lot of designers are doing visual presentations in person, which is amazing. You can even pull this up on a TV screen in your office. You can have that tactile and digital experience of having all of your finished samples in person, in beautiful trays with photos and all of those wonderful things. And then also use this as a resource for yourself to be able to go through and say, okay, approve, decline, approve, decline. And then maybe your client needs to see just a few items to make decisions on after hours, so to speak. And so you can really use this sharing functionality however you want. And when it is time to share, you can tweak and adjust what you're sharing with them. If you don't want them to have links, you can turn that off. If you do or don't want them to see the pricing, you can turn that off. You can tailor as much or as little information as you want them to have access to, and then also apply that to all of the boards as a standard for that project. And this will also save project to project. And so for your future projects, it's going to be like already started for you essentially. And you can tweak if you need to for that project, but it's going to give you that starting point. Now, something that I want to point out here is that we have built this amazing selection board for the kitchen, right? And now I am putting all of the information in, and it can be used a lot of different ways, right? It can be used both for internal, for external, for subs and vendors and receiving warehouses, and then also for the client. So putting in information once, and then it translating out and repeating and not having to do double entry is really the key to the selections inside Houzz. I mentioned earlier briefly about organizing boards by trade. So I just want to quickly show you that. And then we're going to get a deep dive into adding products to boards. So let's create a new board together. I went back out to the main boards page, and I'm just going to change the name. So while it says room name, you can name it whatever you want. So if you want to call this the plumbing board, you can create a board by trade as well, and then just pull in plumbing items. Now, I'm lucky I have items that are already loaded in under the category plumbing. So this makes it kind of easy for me. But when you're trying to add products to the boards, there's a number of different ways that you can actually do that. So one way is by using my items up in the top right-hand corner. So we can go through and pull from our existing library. So in my library, like I mentioned earlier, is going to show anything that you've used before. Oftentimes China products, toilets, sinks, that sort of thing, you might reuse a few times. So saving that in once and then reusing it in the future is actually quite valuable. And like I mentioned before, in that actual board is going to give you anything that was used in other areas of Houzz Pro for that specific board, right? So if I had already added plumbing, I can add it that way, and then we can kind of go from there. So I am going to pull up an example of a plumbing fixture. So we're going to pull up one together, and then we'll add that to this specific board. So 1 second here. I am going to pull up the Kohler Costia. I think that my screen is not sharing, but I will pull this over for you guys. Okay, so, okay. Hopefully you guys can see that now. So there are several ways to source products and add them to your selection boards within Houzz Pro. One of the ways, and our fan favorite, is the Houzz Pro Clipper tool, which is a Google Chrome extension. If you don't have it, you need to have it because it's great. This is going to allow you to be sourcing anywhere on the web and quickly scrape the website using AI and pull down all of the product information that you're going to need to be able to reuse it later. So right here, we're looking at this bathroom faucet. So I'm going to go ahead and choose autofill product info with AI using the Houzz Pro Clipper tool. And it's going to use AI to read this web page and pull down all of the pertinent information that I'm going to need about this specific selection. So the SKU number, what finish I have highlighted, the images, which you can see here. And then I'm going to be able to choose the exact images that I want to include. Now, like I mentioned, it's pulling that cost. It's pulling what you generally are putting as your markup, and then category. Like I said earlier, one of the most important pieces of the pie is going to be the category. So I'm going to create a new category called bathroom faucets. Alternatively, I could do plumbing if I want to really simplify. You can get as granular or as broad as you would like here. And so bathroom faucets is what I'm going to choose to move forward with. And then I'm going to choose my vendor, which is going to help me later on for actually organizing things by vendor, sending purchase orders, etc. And then I'm going to go ahead and save this to this specific project. And I'm going to put it in that plumbing board that we just created together. Now you'll notice beneath that, there's also select placeholder to replace. So if I had a placeholder on my plumbing board, I could go ahead and replace that placeholder from right here when I'm clipping the item, which is super, super helpful in saving time. Below that, I've got all my SKUs, all the pertinent information right there. And then I'm just going to hit Save to Houzz Pro. And now when I go back to that plumbing board, boom, it's already there for me. And I can use this and I have all the product information that I need and I can reuse it over and over and over. Now, that's one way to bring products into Houzz Pro. I'm going to show you another way just by choosing a different finish. And then I'm going to copy the URL for this specific faucet. Now I'm going to go back to this plumbing board. And one of the newer AI functionalities that we've rolled out, you may have noticed this little hover. So in between specific products, this little AI icon will pop up for you to click, paste a link, and then it will do the exact same thing that we just did on the clipping on the actual Ferguson website to clip it, but just with a copy and paste. Way, way faster. Now you can choose to save this item to your items to reuse. And then if you don't check this box, then it can just be a single use product that you never use again. And that's totally fine. So once I hit import, it's going to do that same process that our clipper just did. It's pulling through that website. It's pulling down the SKU number, images, description, dimensions, etc., and creating this product for us that we're going to be able to use throughout the duration of the project. I checked the box for save to library, so it'll also be saved to the library for me, so I can use that forever and keep repeating it. So let's see here. We don't want that image. We don't want that image. That one, I'm going to kill. That one actually was not a great example. I apologize. Didn't work quite like I was hoping for it to. But I'm going to save that image and then I will just replace it here. Let's see. Desktop. Okay, that didn't work. I'll just screenshot it real quick. And Bada bing, bada boom. You will notice that I am having to do this because, again, it is AI. So AI sometimes makes mistakes, just like at the bottom of ChatGPT. It tells us all, hey, sometimes we make mistakes. So you do have to watch out for things like that. But still, at the end of the day, it will make the process a lot faster. So I'm going to also save this one to bathroom faucets. And then I am going to put this in Ferguson as the vendor. Perfect. Now I've got all the information that I need. I want to put my markup on top of that. And then everything that I need for this fixture is saved right in here. So you can save those items, create them that way. And what is really nice about using this little inline copy paste is that you're able to put it exactly where you want, right? So let's go back to that kitchen board and I'll show you what I mean by that. So this light fixture, for example, I want to get this into my kitchen board. I'm going to copy the link. I'm going to go into my kitchen and I'm going to scroll to the exact section. I want it right here. I don't want it down here. I want it right here. And so I can do that same process, import that item, and it's going to pop it right there exactly where I want it on the board. So while the clipper can be super, super helpful for you when you're just mass sourcing things and you're trying to kind of figure out the direction for the project and you're looking at 10 different websites, that can be fantastic. But if you're already kind of past that point and you know exactly where on this board you want that to be displayed, you can use this functionality to kind of get things in quicker and put it exactly where you want it. Okay, I've said a lot. Katie, do we have any questions so far?
There was one question that was a two-part. I think you answered the first part. Allie was asking if there's an easy way to create templates. So you showed how to do that. The second part was, if she doesn't have anything yet, is there anything she could reference within Houzz or any like examples basically that she could then use to build out a selection board?
So for a template?
Mm-hmm.
So something there. So what we have considered building, we have not built it yet, but was to use AI to help us build that list. And AI does a really fantastic job of giving you that list of what you need to select. So I would recommend starting there. And obviously, we all know that there's things that it's not going to get correct because AI is experimental in nature. It can really help us with expediting things. And so I would start there and then tweak according to what maybe it forgets a grout color or something like that, but you can kind of get a baseline and then you can start building your selection board template according to that list. It can kind of give you that foundation or recommend the flow for you. That's what I would personally do is use AI to help expedite that process.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure.
It looks like that was the only question.
Okay, perfect. Now I want to mention a third way of getting products into your library or into a specific project. And that's going to be your handy dandy phone. So, if you're doom scrolling at night and you come across an amazing light fixture, maybe it's an ad, maybe it's something, and you open that link, you can actually tap the share icon from Safari, for example, or Chrome. And then if you have the Houzz Pro app installed, if you just tap the Houzz Pro app, it's going to save that product for you. So mobile clipping is something that's brand new to us, but you can actually clip on the go. I have also done this in a showroom. So I was at Bedrosian's a couple weeks ago and at Porcelanosa, and both of them have QR codes on the products. So if you're there in person with a client, and they're saying, I like this, I love that, I hate that, right? You can scan it, click the share button, save it to Houzz Pro, click that one, save it to Houzz Pro. And so that way, instead of you having to take pictures of everything your client liked in the showroom, you can go ahead and save it to your boards and then save you a whole step of going back and figuring out what was that product that the client liked, right? You can go ahead and kind of mitigate that and expedite things a good bit. So multiple ways to get products in. The last way that I'll point out is just manual. Under my items, you can create an item. This is another method that you can follow. If you have an antique, for example, that is not on a website, it is something that you have an image of and that's about it. You can just upload the image, add the name, add the cost, etc., and create that item and save it to the board. That's going to be a really helpful thing, like I said, for like antiques and things like that you purchase that maybe aren't on a website. Okay, now let's dive into a little bit about these individual items, right? So for example, this pendant that we clipped together, we have these icons up at the top. And so I'm going to cover each of those one by one. So this item overview is giving me all of the information about this one specific item. I did not put this in a category, so I'm going to go ahead and put this into lighting. And then I'm going to put this in the right vendor. And then you can kind of go down the list and see all of the information that you have logged for this specific item. You can adjust it, you can make tweaks, you can edit, you can change what the client's description is, you can change what the name is for the clients to see. Like maybe you don't want them to see the actual product name, you can change this and kind of tweak what they see versus what the vendor sees, etc. And if you want to change the quantity even, so let's say we actually need 2 of those, you can make all of those adjustments just by clicking into this information icon here. Now down at the bottom, there's also order tracking. So from this view, you can manipulate that order tracking. You can also do that in the selections tracker and also through purchase orders, which I'll talk about more later. And then if you have any custom fields in the selections tracker, those are also going to be accessible here. So for example, if you want to put in installation details, like how high that light fixture needs to go, I've created a custom field for that, which I'll show you in a minute. And so you can enter that information right here as well. The next thing on this little product view is going to be the link. So when you clipped that item, whether it was from the Houzz Pro Clipper tool, whether it was from the copy paste URL right here, either method or also on mobile, it's going to save that product link for you. You're not copying a product link, pasting it into a spreadsheet, hoping you put it in the right cell, right? It's saved that for you up front. So there's no repeat work here. Every single product that you're saving using the clipper is data for you to use later on. So if you need to look at the tech specs for the specific light fixture, click the product link, go back, you get all of the information right there. The next is going to be comments. So if you share this externally with your client, you can have conversations with them about this specific fixture. Maybe they hope to see it in a different color, right? They can ask you that question right here. And alternatively, you and your team can have conversations about that specific fixture as well. And those will stay separate from the comments that you and your client are having back and forth. Now, this one is going to be the specifications tab. So it's giving you the dimensions, et cetera. So if you need quick access to how big was that fixture, you can kind of find that in just a second. And then lastly, these 3 dots are going to be helpful for you presentation wise. If you want to reorganize this, make it larger, change how the image is looking, add it to a different section, use that as the main cover image for the overall board, etc. You can kind of do a lot of different things here to manipulate what's going on the page as well. And like I mentioned, these products are entered in once and then they can be used everywhere throughout the system. So whether you're using mood boards in Houzz Pro, you clip the product then, and then you use it in selections and it converts over automatically into proposals and to invoices, you're clipping that information and saving it once, and then it's carrying through the entire project. Now, something that I want to go back to and just highlight even more. So under my items, there's multiple places to choose product, right? I have heard some people say that they're not sure where to choose items from. If you choose from in my library every time, but maybe you've already added to a mood board in the past this specific fixture, you will see a duplicate. You'll want to use in that actual space what you've used in the other board. So you have a mood board for the kitchen, you have a selection board for the kitchen, you're going to want to pull from in this kitchen so that way you don't see any duplicates later on down the line. And that's going to be super helpful for you in the actual procurement tracking piece of things to make sure that everything is super organized. Any questions, Katie?
There's one question which I think you'll cover in a bit, whether clients can see that product link.
So you can control that. Yeah. So under that preview and share that we covered earlier, product links is right here. So you can turn on or off product links. And so let's just see what that looks like down here. If I turn them on, they have the link. If I turn it off, they don't have the link.
Perfect. Another question from Heidi. I know we've gotten this question in the past. If the prices on an item change in the future, is there an easy way to have that reflected basically or incorporate that?
Yeah, so price changes in the future. The Clipper does not update prices. So it's not going to know that the price changed and notify you of that by any means. But you can definitely manage that a couple of different ways. So you can do it from the actual item and adjust the actual item's price from within the project. You can also do that from the company My Items tab. If it's an item that you're going to reuse, you can certainly tweak the cost of this fixture, for example, if it goes way up or it comes down, probably not. You can kind of tweak that from there as well. And then also, let's say that the price changed from the point of selection into the point of proposal and invoice. You can also tweak that from there as well. So there's a few different layers. And once we get into the actual proposals and like converting into proposals, I'll cover that a little bit more as well.
Awesome. And then the last question, there's a way you showed to tag the client if you have a question. How is your client notified about that?
Yeah, so your client will get an email. So when you make that comment, you can just @mention. And so it's going to pull up when I type in that icon, my client for this project. And then when I hit submit, they're going to get an email notification for that. Now they can also access that from inside the client dashboard. So when they get the email, it's going to give them a link into the client dashboard if you shared it with them. And so they can access it there.
Okay, perfect.
Amazing. Anything else?
I think that is good for now.
Okay, perfect. We will keep things moving then. So let's talk a little bit about converting this into a proposal. Now, the selection board is really intended for you to use during the phase that you're getting approvals and working with the client through what's actually going to go in this project, right? So I'm going to go through and approve and decline some things. We're not going to use those fixtures. We're not going to use this fixture, that sort of thing, right? So now there's a couple of different ways that you can get to the point of converting this into the proposal. And you might ask, why do I need a proposal, right? A lot of times designers are creating these boards as, this is like the first level of approval. And then that proposal really combines everything together of, okay, let's look at everything one more time before I spend my money. And hopefully you collected the payment up front, but you want to make sure everybody is really, 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 really certain that they want you to order these products, right? And so creating that proposal can be super helpful in that. So for example, on this board, I want to see just my approved items and I want to convert this into a proposal. Maybe they only want to move forward with the kitchen, for example. So I'm going to look for the approved items in this kitchen, and then I'm going to hit the convert button up at the top. Now, there's two different ways you can do this. You can create the proposal or go straight to the invoice. Like I said, a lot of people are just going for the proposal because they want to get that final layer of sign off before they turn it into an invoice. And so I'm going to select all and add all of these items. Now below that, it's going to show me other items in other selection boards. So I can also go ahead and add those here as well. I can select them all, select only the approved ones, etc., and then create a proposal for this item. Now, I don't want to include the cabinetry. I just need to include the lighting and the furniture and the art. So when I hit convert, it's going to go ahead and create a proposal for me for those items. Now, again, the beautiful part about Houzz is that when you click that information, it is reused over and over. And again, you're not duplicating work. You're not putting this information into a spreadsheet for the client. You're not putting this into a spreadsheet tracker for yourself. And then you're not repeating that work to send it to a contractor or to a shipping receiver, that sort of thing. So you'll see here, it brought everything over for me. It's got the items, it's got all of the details for it. You can customize exactly what columns you want to hide or show here. We won't spend too much time in proposal since that's an entirely different feature, but you kind of get the gist of convert from selections into proposals. And then from here, once you get approval, you can turn it into an invoice. Alternatively, you can collect payment on the overall proposal. It's completely up to what practices you want to use as a business. And so that's just really powerful to be able to convert from here. One other thing that you can do right here is go ahead and create the POs. So it's connecting this full flow in right here. So I can go ahead and create the purchase orders for these items. You can see I need a purchase order for 4 hands, crate and barrel, and lumens. So when I create those purchase orders, they're already ready for me. And just a click, it's auto created all of that documentation for me. And then I can send these out to my reps. Or if you need to build a cart manually, you have that tracking in place for you to have all of that information. Now I'm going to play pretend with this one specific example here and go ahead and say that this has been ordered so I can show you what that looks like later on. And I'm going to go ahead and mark this as paid as well. Mark as billed, done. Oops. Let me put this as check. And then I'm going to hit done. Okay, so this is going to help me paint the picture for you in the selections tracker. So hopefully this kind of helps you see how the full flow works. But now let's dive back into selections and look at that selections tracker. So the selections tracker is going to be an absolute powerhouse for you. It can do a million things, and it can certainly feel overwhelming, but I promise you it's really, really not. So there are first multiple views up at the top. We have planning, financials will be there by default, procurement, and all will also be there by default. But you notice that I have one for install day. I created what is called a custom view, which you can also do up here. And so this is giving me just the columns that are relevant to me for install day. I just need to know what room it's going in, has it been billed, that sort of information, right? What the order status is. If I have information about the receiving date, et cetera, I might need to know that, right? And so what I did was created a custom view that is unique to my account. And then alternatively, you can create a view that's for your entire company. So let's make one together. We're going to say my view, and we're just going to say receiving. We can create that view and then turn on and off what fields we need to see, right? So for receiving, it doesn't really matter to me what the room is, but I do need to know who the vendor was. Maybe I do or don't care about the financials at this point. During receiving, maybe I don't care about that, but I do care about shipping financials, right? You can kind of tailor this to be exactly what you want it to be. And then when you hit save, that's going to be reflected for you. So you can also further adjust this and tweak just by using the little three dots here and customize, and you can further adjust, edit, and tweak what's shown on the screen here. And so those views are intended for you to be able to have access to the information that you need to have access to right when you need it, right? During the planning phase, I don't need all of the details that I need during looking at things from a financial perspective. When I'm thinking about sales tax and how much I'm paying on sales tax, I need the sales tax column, right? But maybe you don't need that on install day. And so it really helps you to be able to tweak and adjust and view the information you need when you need it. Now, I'm going to go back to the all view. This is giving me all of the columns that are available to me inside Houzz. So up at the top right-hand corner, there's a couple things that I want to point out to you. So this little icon here is going to help you tweak what the view looks like. The stacked view is going to show you things in this stacked view. So it's kind of like a hamburger. You know, we have the purchase unit cost, the profit per unit, and then the MSRP would be listed below that if I had saved the MSRP. And then if I switch to flat view, you can see everything's broken out more like a spreadsheet. So there's individual cells and columns for each specific column, right? So everything is broken out for me. There's no right or wrong way to look at it, whichever you prefer and is easiest for your brain and the way you think. That's totally up to you. And so you can just tweak that right here. Next to that is going to be customize. So we kind of covered this already with the custom views, but you can tailor exactly how much or how little information you need. You can also drag and drop to reorder, and that will reflect on the actual tracker itself. Now, we'll come back to export in a minute, but one of the most powerful functionalities lives right here in this line with the search bar. So obviously, we all know what the search bar is going to do. It's going to help us find the specific product that we want. Sort by is going to change how we're viewing things. If I want to sort this by room, A to Z, it's going to sort everything by room, right? I can also do that by category. So if I need to see everything sorted into different categories, you can also do that as well, et cetera, et cetera. Organized by is going to be another layer for you as well. If I want to group and batch things, for example, by vendor, I can do that. So I can see everything under Ferguson, right here. And then you can also see it by other vendors as well. Same thing for order status, for example. If you need to see everything that's been ordered, everything that's back ordered, everything that is not ordered yet, you can kind of get a batch list of those different items here. Let me clear this because I actually have a filter on already, and then I'll reapply so you can get the full picture. So you can see the items that are not ordered. We have the ones that are waiting for quote, the ones that are ordered, back ordered, delivered to the receiver, etc. So you can kind of get as granular as you want. So you can track the information that you want. And this is all on a case-by-case basis, right? Like maybe today you need to know what's being back ordered, but you don't need to know that for another week. You can just come back a week from now and look at just the things that are back ordered still. And the beautiful piece about this tracker is that as you update items and like change the order status, for example, of this chair. If, say, for instance, maybe one of your junior designers does that, the entire team has access to that information. So there's no back and forth. There's no digging through email inboxes to find out if this chair has been ordered. All that information is going to be available to the entire team in real time. So the second I change the order status, everybody will know it. If this is now back ordered, everybody has access to that information. And you'll notice it moved for me because I'm in that organized by order status. Now, another one that I like to highlight is vendor and sub. So you can see, this is what's coming from Bedrosians. This is what's coming from Crate and Barrel, etc. And so what's really helpful here is that you can kind of bulk update based off of the information you're getting from the vendor, right? So if these two items have both been delivered to the job site, you can just edit in bulk and change what that status is. So we're going to change that to delivered. And now I hit save, and both of those items are going to be updated for me. So that's going to help you to kind of make bulk actions faster because obviously you're placing orders by vendor, but you need to know that information and update it throughout the entire process. Now, just a few minutes ago, I showed you guys the example of the art, right? And I created the purchase order for the art from that proposal. So I want to point that out to you and how that looks here on the selections tracker. In that document status column, it went ahead and told me what proposal it's on. I can click and go look at that proposal. And it's also telling me what purchase order it's on. So again, I can click and go access that purchase order. Now, I mentioned when I was in that purchase order, I was changing the order status there. And wouldn't you know, inside the selections tracker, it's also telling me that this item has been ordered here. So if that order status is updated here, or if it's updated in the purchase order, it's going to be reflected here in that selections tracker. So you have access to all of that information in one place. Another thing that I want to show you is the approval status. So I have people ask often, how do I see everything that's approved, right? So use that filter. Change it to approved, alternatively change it to declined or pending. If you need a short list of all the things that have not been approved yet, you can create that list and then be able to cover it with your client on your next client meeting. Document status is another. If you need to see what has been invoiced, what's on a proposal, what's been included on a purchase order and hasn't, you can kind of toggle through those different document statuses to see the info that you need. Category. Let's go back to category. That's my favorite piece of the puzzle. So for example, category can be used in a number of different ways, right? If you need to see all the art, all of the light fixtures, etc., you can use this category field to sort and organize. Oops, sorry, I went off the page too fast. And see just what you need to see. So this is going to be particularly helpful for you if you're trying to create construction-ready finish schedules. So back at the very beginning of our conversation today, we talked about the importance of setting up those categories. So now you can see how that translates into the selections tracker as well. I need to see just my approved light fixtures so I can give that to the contractor who is doing the remodel of this kitchen. Now I have a short list of those two items. It has all of the information already linked in. I didn't duplicate work. I didn't go create a construction schedule separate from what I presented to my client. I did it once and it's saved for forever, right? So once I filter down to approved lighting, I'm going to use the export functionality to share this information with the field. So there's several options. You can go more like a traditional Excel schedule. You certainly can. There's also the PDF. You can also download tear sheets. And then you can also do a report of allowances, which is really going to be more for people who are focusing on construction finishes. My personal favorite is going to be the FF&E schedule. So I'll show you what that looks like. And again, here you can toggle on and off as much or as little information as you want. If you don't want the description, if you don't want the links, if you don't want people to see what the price is, etc., you can toggle on and off all of that information from here. Under additional info, there's two things that are really, really powerful. If you want to share that product link so that they can access things like technical specs or installation details in the field, you can turn that on. And then you can also do a QR code, which is auto-generated for you based off of when you clipped way back when at the very beginning, right? And so this is going to create a PDF for me of just my lighting. So it's creating the lighting schedule for me in just a second. So you'll see here, it says lighting. It has my 2 items. It has where they're going, how many we need, what the SKU is, what the finish is, etc. So if somebody is on their mobile device, for example, they can click this link and go to the product. And then alternatively, if somebody wants to print this out and put a spec book on the job site, you can also scan that QR code to access the product link for this specific fixture as well. So several options for sharing that information. But again, it all backs into that original category system and how you set that up. So using that category is super, super powerful. Now, moving back to that placeholders conversation, under item properties, you can toggle to view just the placeholder. So if you need to see the things that you haven't provided a selection for, you can get that list really, really, really fast. And it's looking across all of your boards. So every room that you've created or every trade board that you've created, so you know what still needs to be selected. And so you can kind of create a list for yourself of what work you still need to do. So a couple other ways that people are using the tracker today, sales tax tracking. So you can see exactly what sales tax was paid. This is not an editable field for you. This is based off of what you're billing out to the client. So it's going to be based off of that actual proposal. So you're seeing what you're paying in sales tax and then also what financial amount is that sales tax, right? Not just that it's 7%, the actual dollar value. And so you can use this as a sales tax tracker as well. You can also use this as a way to log your receiving numbers. So for example, if you have a receiving number, you can log that information into this tracker as well. And I'll show you what that looks like. So I'm just going to click to add a new field here, and I'm going to say receiving number, and I can choose what type of field I want that to be. We just want this to be text. And so if your receiver gives you a number, you can just add that in right here. Let's pretend this one is 65789, right? I can save that right here. And then myself and the entire team have access to that information as well. Now you'll notice here, I have one for Sheen. I made that for paint specifically. Now you'll notice that it's showing up for items that are not paint. And I know that, but if you don't put anything in that field, it's not going to show up on the actual export that you spit out at the end of the day. So you have the ultimate flexibility here to log the information that you need, and then you can kind of really filter things down. So for example, if I had paint in here and I filtered to category paint, and I just wanted to make sure I had covered the sheen and covered my bases, I can go down the line really quickly just by using that filter to see exactly what I need to see, checks and balances, make sure that I input everything that is relevant for me right there, all in bulk. I think that is a ton about the tracker. Katie, is there any questions about the tracker?
One question, let's see, can the QR code be linked to the product installation only, so not to the product itself?
It cannot change, but I will give you guys a spoiler alert that we are going to be introducing the ability to clip the install guide when you clip the item. That's something that's coming within the next few months. And so I think that that will ultimately serve what you need. So there's something coming to solve for that.
Perfect. And then one question from Jenny. Is there a way to be logged in and only see the client view? So say you're like sitting next to your client and you don't want them to see all the back end details that you would have on your proposal, for instance.
Yeah, for sure. So you can provide a link to the client view. So for example, under client dashboard, when you send your client dashboard to your client, you can share and copy a link. So then if you just want to open that link yourself, you can open that link and just view that in person with the client. I think because I'm logged in, it's not going to show me that. But what I usually do is open it in an incognito window if you've used one of those before. Let me stop sharing and I'll show you what that looks like real quick in that window. I just did, hang on one second. Window, boom. Okay, so I just opened an incognito window and I pasted that link in. So now you can go to the selection boards, see the ones that have been published and walk through it with them that way. So it's opening that board. We can go through this in person and it's only the client's view of it and not your internal view. Alternatively, there's one other thing that I'll show you that you can do. So on the selection board page, let me get back to it and share my right screen. Let's see. Selection boards. Okay. You guys can see that okay, right?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So on this screen, there's also this link right here. And so you can copy a link for only the published boards. And so what that's going to do for you is it's going to create a link of all of the boards that have been published. I accidentally shared the wrong version of my screen. So let me share the full screen again. And then I will show you what that looks like. So I copied that link, I paste it, and then it's giving me access to all of the boards. Now, what that was initially designed for was like more of e-design. So if you do an e-design project with somebody and you're not giving them a full client dashboard, but you need them to access just a set of boards, you can use that link right here and send them this link to it. And that's all they have access to. They're not seeing the full client dashboard. They're just seeing the board. So you could certainly use that as well. And they can still comment from that view as well. So any other questions, Katie?
No, that's it. I was just going to add that incognito trick is a good one. Like if you develop a proposal and you want to just take a quick look to see what your client view will be, you can copy the link, put it in a browser and look at it as well. So that's just another way to sort of double check before you share anything.
For sure. And just another thing from this board view while I'm on it, you can also do things in bulk. So if you have multiple boards and you need to do some things at bulk, you can see right when I created that specific, or right when I checked that box, it's giving me several options. So if I need to publish all my boards in bulk or alternatively take them off of the dashboard, I can do so right here. And I can also download the PDFs of those individual boards all in bulk from this screen right here, which can be super, super helpful for you as well. And then also just to note from inside the actual board, I showed you what it's like to export information from the tracker, but you can also do that from inside as well. So you can do right next to preview and share, you can download a PDF or download the tear sheets for just those items. And so it's like a macro view, right? This is just the room by room. And then the tracker is what you're going to want to use if you're trying to look exhaustively across all of your boards. Okay, I think that I have hopefully taught you something new, maybe talked a little too fast and bored you, but hopefully not. But at the end of this, I hope that everybody has a really good picture of the fact that categories are the firm foundation for you. The templates are going to help you speed up, create that repeatable process. The placeholders are going to allow you to kind of hold the spot for all the things that you need to select. The boards are going to help you in the decision-making process. And then the tracker is going to really help you in the execution, procurement, and delivering those field specs to the team that you're working with if it's a full construction project. Okay.
There's one last quick question from Hannah. Is there a way to add in the install date in bulk if you wanted to add it to multiple items?
Add the install date in bulk. So let's go back to the selections tracker. So let's say we want to go to these two items and then hit edit. You can add in the install date right here in bulk. So let's say both of these items are being installed next week and then hit save. And then both of the install dates for that are going to be updated. So you're going to want to use that bulk functionality. I don't even think I have install date showing right now. Let me see if I can get that showing for you so you can see. There we go. Let me turn that back on. And then you can see that install date updated in bulk for those 2 items. So you can get to that information by searching for it. You can filter down to view just those 2 items. All of those things can be tools for you to then check the box, hit edit, and then bulk update whatever you need to bulk update.
Amazing. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for being here today. We super appreciate it. Hopefully you all learned something new.
Thank you, Abby. And a recording will be sent out probably later on today. So keep an eye out for that.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, y'all.
Okay. Bye.